today we're going to troubleshoot your TBI if you've got a little bit of a shudder, got a miss suddenly, you're running rich. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch base on a few things. Let's start on the basics, okay? When's the last time you changed your fuel filter? Okay, check your fuel filter and make sure you don't have a problem with your fuel filter. Other things that can make it run rich and miss: spark plugs, spark plug wires, cap, rotor. Take them off, inspect them. It only takes a second, you know, little teeny screw, just undo it. Then you have a map sensor. Okay, on the Chevy 454s, they look just like this. This is one of my spare ones for a test unit, but this is a map sensor right here. Very, very rarely you'll have a TPS sometimes go bad. I've got a spare one of these on that. Some of the other stuff you could have go an injector, you know, start going bad and running rich. These are your injectors right here. So these are some of the things that can go wrong with it. Let's also touch base on something that that happens quite often, and this is your engine temperature control sensor. So, you know, these are not very much. They're about 16 bucks, pretty cheap. They're located up here in the front of the motor, right by where you see your thermostat housing right there. Look right in front of it and straight down, and you'll find that booger. There's, it looks like, let's see if I can actually see it from here. Actually, you can. That's that wire right there, but you really can't get a good look out. There it is right there. That bolt hiding underneath that wire, that is it. That's your engine temperature control sensor. And what that is, it's pretty much like two switches in one. So one pretty much, you know, sends a signal back to your, you know, instruments and tells you, you know, what the temperature is, and the other one sends off the signals to pretty much tell the computer it's a cold motor and to run rich, lean, etc. It controls that. So what you want to do is $16 change out, you know, and you'd be shocked at what that can do. So let's go to the next step. And then you have now a lot of people will say, oh man, your fuel pump's going bad, or it can be your pressure regulator. You know, well, the fuel pump going bad usually creates a lean situation and a stall out because it just doesn't have the fuel to go, or it won't start, or to start and shut right back off. So we're not going to touch on that today. That's not what's going on. Now, in very rare circumstances, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. I took this off one of my old spare TBIs. That's your regulator right there. And this one's an ugly one, but believe it or not, it was working just perfect. So your regulator's right there, and what it is, it's this unit right here. This is, I've already rebuilt this TBI. We've got a running rich situation, so we're going to troubleshoot it, show you guys how to solve it, how to fix it, and get back up and running and no problems. If you want to know how to rebuild these, I've also got how to rebuild your TBI. If you're having problems getting your injectors working, it shows you how to troubleshoot your injectors, and it shows you how to test your injectors. It shows how to test your plugs right here to make sure that your NOID light is working, so you can get your little flashing light, which shows you're getting a signal from your brain. ECUs sometimes can do this, but you know, like I said, most of the time you're going to find your problem is that culprit right there, which is your map sensor, or it's going to be your engine temperature control sensor, so which is, like I said, up there in front of the motor. So let me get all this started. What we're going to do, we're going to play with the map sensor first, see if it solves it, and then we're going to come and we're going to go ahead and change out the engine temperature control sensor. We'll go ahead and get that booger in there. This will be replaced. I'll go ahead and put a new one in there, and we'll see if that solves it. If that solves it, then problem solved. You guys can get up and running and shooting down the road. Oh, before I forget and totally get started on this, as you see, I've already removed the map sensor, so I'm going to replace my test map sensor. Now look, while you get going on this, if you've got an injector going bad, say if it's a left or right injector, okay, and it's starting to go bad and just flogging your system, look, real simple. unbolt a spark plug, pull it out and look at it. It tells the signs. You know, if you pull out a right bank and it's black, you know, then you know it's your right injector. This is on a simple troubleshooting. If you pull out a left spark plug and it's black, then it's on the left side. If it's left and right and they're both black, again, revert back to it's probably going to be your map sensor right here, which can cause all sorts of havoc. You can, very rarely but not often, but you can have a pressure regulator going bad and it's just flooding the system. And then, like I said, the other side of it's going to be your engine temperature control sensor. So it's in the very front. So like I said, between these three, it can solve this problem. Let me go ahead and plug this in there, but I just want to remind you, your spark plugs tell the sign. You know, if it's nice and chocolatey, perfect. If it's white looking, or even almost like, sometimes some of the newer cars will have like an ashy white look to it. That's because of all the ethanol and all the other stuff being run in it. It just doesn't burn the same. So it changes from what you see in the old school books, you know, showing that would be like super lean. Usually lean looks like it's, I mean, literally almost like a new spark plug, like it's just not getting any combustion at all. And like I said, now if it's black, and definitely carbony black, that's absolutely running rich. So, you know, let me change out a couple of the simple things here and we'll see where we go. We're going to troubleshoot this one by one, and then we'll see which one solves it. Okay guys, what I want to do is I saw something. I changed out the map sensor, seemed to run a little bit better, so I decided to go and check my plugs like I was telling you before. Let's see if I can get a better picture of this. Alright, there's the chocolate I was telling you about. That's a pretty decent looking burn right there. Okay, this was my left bank. Alright, then I went ahead and pulled out one out of the right bank, and let me tell you, that is just not very good running plug. What the? Everything wants to zoom in on the back, so we'll just zoom it this way. Alright, so apparently my right side is running horribly. These were new Bosch Platinum plugs, so I'm going to have to clean up all my plugs, but it looks like so. Something else I noticed after I changed out the map sensor, it was running a little bit better. My left injector was spraying pretty much the way it was supposed to. What I noticed was my right injector seemed to be flogging a little bit, so she was spraying a little bit extra. So I'm going to swap out injectors and see if that solves the problem. Like I said, there are certain things you got to check. If you follow these, you should solve your TBI, shutter and miss, or running rich. Pretty simple system. So let's get this changed out. Let's see if it solves the problem. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out all the plugs, clean them up, and then I'll come back to you. Hey guys, on a simple note too, just to remind you, when you're taking off the spark plug boots on these Chevys, 350s and even the 43s, and especially this 454, I find that my spark plug boots become near impossible to get off the actual spark plug. I mean, they literally, the boots, because they're so close to the exhaust manifold, they get like hot, and they pretty much seal themselves to the spark plug. So what I've done is, and just to be on the safe side, I go ahead and I put a little bit of anti-seize up on the spark plug, and I put some dielectric grease around the spark plug, so when I put the boot on there, makes it easier to get it off the next time. I can't tell you how many times I've fought spark plug boots on the Chevys. So just put a little dielectric grease on there. It helps it out a lot and makes it a lot easier, less headache. So I've cleaned up the spark plugs, getting ready to put them back in. Then we're going to start it and see if the mist goes away. Hey, also when you got a running rich TBI, I also want you to, when you take off the plugs right here, I want you to look around where the injector is and around where it goes into the little bowl right there, and make sure you don't have any leaks. Turn your fuel, actually turn your key on. You can hear the pump engage, and you just want to make sure no fuel. I had one before, it was leaking right there from the gasket, and it was dripping down into the throttle body. It was making it run rich, so that was what was the problem. Once I replaced the gasket and the O-ring, it was a done deal. So now on this one right here, on purpose, I've gone through and taken all this apart, And what I noticed was, as I was sitting behind it, which you're going to have to probably, in a regular vehicle, you're going to have to sit on the other side, I noticed that the left side, the cylinder type of spray pattern was thinner than on this right side. Well, the right side plugs was saying it was running a little bit richer. So like I said, so it sent me back to looking at the injectors, and I noticed that this right injector was spraying a little bit more than the left side. So we're going to swap injectors real quick and see if everything clears up and goes away. We've already changed out a map sensor in the test process. I noticed it cleared it up a little bit. So like I said, we're going to walk you right through this and get a perfectly running 454. Alright guys, I went ahead and swapped out the front engine coolant temperature sensor right there, and so far I started up the motorhome, or actually started up the 454 and the motorhome, and so far no smoke. Now I had already taken off the I just had a spare regulator, so I took the regulator off and just swapped it out temporarily. And which you gotta be careful when you do that so you don't mess up your gasket, but didn't really change anything. It actually ran worse. So I put the right pressure regulator back on it, and you know, there's also a rebuild on the TBIs on my channel, so if you want to check that out, you can. Any other questions, like I said, just ask me. Now I didn't mess with the throttle position sensor right there. And I also went ahead, I added my own mechanical temperature gauge, which is right below the fuel line and your map sensor vacuum lines. Now I'd already changed about the map sensor with a different test one. Didn't change anything either. But as soon as I put in the new coolant temperature right there, it started to run smooth. The actual the richness went away, and it's back to running great. So that's what it ended up being. So from now on, whenever you're checking these out, let's do the, you know, you got some main things that it cause running rich situation. Come up in here, you know, it's okay. Pull one of these off right here, and once you get this off, what you want to do is pull the rubber off, and you want to look up in there, make sure it's not dripping and leaking fuel. If you got leaking fuel there, you want to make sure it's not spraying fuel out the sides or the front. We'll make sure there's no fuel coming down through back here, and this underneath your pressure regulator. You just want to look around, make sure. And then when you look at your cylinder type of spray, just picture a badminton. The little thing you hit, the little badminton, has got that little bit of triangle, like a little dome shape type deal. That's how your cylinder should look of spray of fuel. That's what it reminds me of, a badminton. So anyways, make sure all that looks all good and it's not just like pissing fuel out. From there, you want to check out, here's your map sensor. You want to check out any vacuum lines that could be leaking. You got a couple vacuum lines up front. Make sure nothing's popped off. If you get a backfire, sometimes it'll pop off an old line. Just make sure you don't hear any vacuum lines. If any questions or doubts on a vacuum line or vacuum leak, you can spray a little bit of starting fluid around the areas you suspect and see if it changes your idle. If it changes your idle, or and it powers up some, then you know that. Just, you know, make sure you don't have any like sparking wires anywhere, or some, you know, cracked spark plug wires and they're like cracked. Otherwise you can have all sorts of problems. Anyways, so we solved the problem by changing out the front little $16 sensor. And while I was in there, I also did a little trick to cool the motorhome down just a little bit. I pulled that out and put a couple holes drilled into the thermostat to keep it cooler. I also run 160-degree thermostat. Since it's in a motorhome, it sits so far back. But you know, when you're running a big block, you know, heat's your enemy. So I'd just rather run a cooler motor. I'm down south, so I definitely want to run cooler, especially when we run air conditioning. So anyways, that's your TPS running rich problem solved. Any other questions? You know, just check out the other TPS rebuild. We might do one that's modifying it a little bit. We'll just see how it goes.